guys, it's Bubbles! I just want to start this video off by saying thank you so much for 50 subscribers. I didn't think this would happen, and also it happened in like a couple weeks, so I'm super surprised. Thank you so much for the great surprise and being so supportive. Okay, before I start this video off, I should probably tell you a little bit what it's going to be about, and then we'll get started. So something you guys don't quite know about me yet is that you know that I'm a reader. I am also a writer too, though. And basically in this video, I wanted to talk about some of the characters that I've written and talk a little bit about their stories. I am going to be breaking down each character, talking a little bit about their stories, and I'm going to try and find a picture for each one to show you a little bit what I think they look like. So please stick around for the little video. Okay, we're starting off strong here with my first character. This character's name is Marsh. I'm going to probably put a picture like right here of what I think she looks like. And so Marsh is from my story that I wrote, and it's called Bruises and Broken Hearts. And this story is basically, it talks about mental health, and this character is basically the embodiment of my mental health issues. I know nobody's perfect, and everyone has their own problems. And so I took all my mental problems and put them into a story and a character. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Marsh here. And so Marsh is basically the embodiment of my mental health issues. And so basically what she is she's having trouble feeling like she's included with her friends. And she feels like she has no one to talk to. She also feels like she is the mom of her family because she has a single dad and 2 brothers, and she feels like she has to take care of everyone and that she has no one to talk to about her mental stuff. And she has 2 friends. One is named Andy, and the other is named, I forgot her name. What's her name? 1 second. Stella, that's her name. Okay, so her friends are named Andy and Stella. And Andy and Stella both have their own problems too. Stella is hiding herself from people because she wants to be popular. And she's hiding her true passions, like sewing and crocheting. And her other friend named Andy has problems at home. Andy is in a not exactly abusive, but not exactly kind household. She's not in a very good household. Her parents don't really care about her. In the beginning of the story, Andy is in a fight with another girl at her school, and her parents don't even care that she gets suspended. And so, sorry, something just thumped. And so Andy has her own problems too. And so Marsh feels like she needs to listen to everyone else's problems and focus on their problems, and like her problems aren't important. And so that's basically Marsh for you. Okay, so moving on, we are on to Maddox. So Maddox was the first and only male character that I ever wrote, because I am female. And so I am naturally drawn to write more about male characters, or female characters. And so this was the first male character I ever wrote, and I think it was a very interesting and different experience, and I really enjoyed it. And so Maddox is a little bit more on the intense side of the characters that I've written. Maddox is dealing with the grief of losing his dad to cancer. And so Maddox is 15, and he used to celebrate, this is a magical realism story, by the way. Maddox is dealing with the grief of losing his dad to cancer. And so basically he would used to celebrate Hanukkah with his dad. And when the next Hanukkah comes around, he's feeling the grief of losing his dad. And so he, every night when he lights the candle on the menorah, he goes back and visits a memory with his dad. And Maddox is, he hides his feelings from other people because he doesn't feel like he can express them. By the way, here's a picture of Maddox, and this is what I think he'd look like. Okay, so my next character is named Kathleen. This is a historical fiction story, so her style's a little bit more, she was from the 1960s, so a little bit longer ago. This is what I think she'd look like. And so Kathleen is more on one of my intenser characters because she is from the 1960s. And if you didn't know this about the 1960s, in the 1960s, a popular procedure for people with mental health disorders was the lobotomy. And if you don't know what that is, the lobotomy was a surgical procedure back then where they would stick an ice pick through your eye socket, severing a nerve in your brain, and they thought that cured mental health issues. They also thought it cured, being gay and schizophrenia and all those things they thought were mental health disorders then. And so Kathleen, she has schizophrenia. And at the beginning of the story, she talks about her schizophrenia and how she sees this other side to herself. Kathleen talks about how she sees this other side to herself that's like more happy and carefree. And she wishes that she was this side of herself. And she sees this side of herself die in a dream. And so her mom finally takes her to the doctor where she's finally put on the list for a lobotomy. And this story is told in diary entries. And the diary entries start out talking about her schizophrenia. Then they slowly get into how her mom takes her to the doctor. And then it gets into how she's feeling she's very on the breaking point right before her lobotomy. And she's at the hospital and she feels like she's going insane. And then afterward, it's very happy and turned around because she's had the lobotomy. And so that, I think, what makes this story a little bit more intense and makes this character a little bit more intense. Okay, so the next character I have for you is Kayla. And Kayla is from my story, Countdown, which I wrote kind of a long time ago, so it's not a very good quality story. But it was right after I read this book. This book is called Time Bomb, and it's a really good book. I highly recommend, by the way. But after I read this book, I wrote this story. And that book is about kids who are stuck in a school during a school bombing. And there's a bunch of stuff in that book. It's a really good book. But that's what inspired this story. And this story is about this girl who's stuck in a same concept about a girl who's stuck in a school during a school bombing. And she has these 3 friends that are with her in the school, and they're all trying to save each other. And this character, Kayla, gets hurt. And so these 3 boys save her from being, dying from the school bombing. And so she's like, she gets hurt during the school bombing, and these 3 boys save her. And like I said, this isn't a very good quality story. There's no background to the character. I wrote this a long time ago, and my writing skills weren't as good. And so there's not a lot to say about Kayla, but that she's very, she's got a dirty mouth. She curses a lot. Yeah. And she is very, drawn to these 3 boys after she's saved. So there's not really much to say about her except that. This is what I think she'd look like. So this next character, her name is Autumn, and she is in my story called just Autumn for now. I never changed it because I could never think of a name, so I just ended up calling it Autumn. And this story is inspired by 3 books, actually. It's inspired by 5 Feet Apart, The Fault in Our Stars, and If He Had Been With Me. That's where the name came from. It came from If He Had Been With Me. And basically this character, she is diagnosed with lung cancer. And so that's from The Fault in Our Stars. That's where that inspo came from. And she is slowly getting sicker and sicker, and she knows she's going to die. And so she's trying to live her life to the fullest while also falling for her best friend, because her best friend cares about her so much, and she loves it, and she's falling for her best friend slowly. And Autumn is very self-conscious after losing her hair and because of chemo, and yet that's still not being a saver, but she's determined not to let the cancer beat her. This is what I think she'd look like. My final character that I'll be talking about in this video, I am going to be talking about Aespa, who is one of my favorite characters, but she doesn't come from a very good story. For starters, the story is unnamed because I wrote it a really long time ago, and I just never gave it a name. And so this is a fantasy story, one of the few fantasy stories I've ever written. Even though fantasy is my favorite genre, I haven't written a lot of fantasy stories, which is kind of weird to me. But so Aespa is from a fantasy story inspired by The Selection, if you've read that book. And so basically Aespa is a character who she's traumatized because her parents died when she was very young, and they were killed like right in front of her by a rebel group who's rebelling against the system. And the system is basically every time a prince in the royal family becomes of age, they bring in a lot of girls from different towns and cities to his castle to find a wife. And so basically, when my house keeps making sounds. So basically, the prince brings a bunch of girls in to hopefully find a wife. And so basically, part of the prince's guard comes to Aespa's village, and they start testing the girls. And what the testing basically is they're testing the intensity of your magical abilities. And so there was a scale, 1 through 5, 5 being the strongest. Basically, your magical abilities get tested. And the prince only wants people of a 4 or a 5 so he can keep the strong powers in the royal family going. So Aespa tests a 5 and is sent to the castle. And things go not so great. I'm not going to spoil any more than that. And I'm just going to say that Aespa is she's very, I don't want to be here, I hate you kind of person, with the whole testing thing and the whole going to the castle and getting married and whatever. And I think that's kind of me trying to make this character the opposite of myself, because I feel like I would be very, I would kind of just give up. But I wanted to make this character the opposite of what I would do, so that's exactly what I did. By the way, I think this is what she would look like. Thank you for watching the video and listening to all my characters. If you would like to see these stories, I can start a Wattpad. If you guys would like to see that, let me know down in the comments. Bye!